Good morning and welcome to the GreenRoc Mining PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. You can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and will publish responses where appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Kirk Adams, CEO. Good morning, Kirk.
Hi, good morning, and good morning, everybody. 100 years ago, a predominantly Danish group of miners dug by hand this island that you can see in front of you on the start of the slide. They dug hundreds of meters of tunnels into this island, exploiting one of the highest grade graphite mines in the world. Today, I'm going to tell you about this deposit and the mainline deposit, Calac, which is located across the ford, and why we at GreenRoc are planning to make them part of the solution for the graphite and the titanium global supply squeeze that we see developing. But first of all, I need to I've lost the slide thing here. I need to go through a couple of issues with respect to what I'm about to say. So, first of all, this presentation is going to outline 4 projects in GreenRoc's portfolio, and it will present a vision for the future. As such, there's going to be a large number of forward-looking statements, which are subject to risks, uncertainties, and other factors that may cause events to differ materially from my anticipated developments. So this is the warning disclaimer slide to really tell you that these are forward-looking statements. These are my visions for the future. Now, who am I? I'm Kirk Adams. I'm a mining engineer and a mine builder, and I'm the CEO of GreenRoc Mining PLC. For a mining company to be successful, I believe you need 3 components. You need a good project with commercially extractable, in-demand minerals, a good management team, and a good mining jurisdiction. I'm going to present a portfolio of 100% owned, high-grade projects, which outline our ambition to become a key supplier of critical minerals to what is becoming a commodities market where demand is increasing at an accelerating rate. So why does GreenRoc meet these success metrics then? Well, in summary, and this is an overview slide here, the projects we have are in the top quartile in terms of mineral grade, and indeed close to the highest grades in some of them of projects known globally. Secondly, we already have a significant and meaningful geological and metallurgical amount of data that support that claim, and a plan to fast track these two of the flagship projects towards production. Thirdly, we're in markets, and particularly the 2 flagship projects, which are growing fast. Ilmanite's growing at a steady rate and continues to grow as an industrial mineral, but graphite is the demand for graphite is growing at, frankly, eye-watering speeds. And fourthly, we have a management team that's been specifically put together. I believe they have the skills, the contacts, and the experience needed to fast track these projects into production, these 2 flagship projects. So let's have a look at that management team then. I'll start, if I can, with George Frangiskidis, who's our chairman. He's one of the hardest working mining executives it's been and continues to be my pleasure to work with. He's more than 25 years experience in mining, legal and corporate advisory work, and he's a depth of experience in Greenland. He's been there for more than 7 years through his leadership of Alba. He's a highly detailed oriented and has a fantastic legal mind and is an excellent guide for the company, and it's a great pleasure, as I said, for me to work directly with him as the chairman of the company. Jim Wynn, our finance director, has worked for Avocet Mining and Rainbow Rare Earths as CFO. He's also worked for Anglo American in business development, and as a chartered accountant, he brings a depth of financial as well as mining experience and skill to the team. Lars Brunner, as an independent non-executive, has been an environmental consultant for more than 30 years and led our environmental team at Tula Black Sands in 2018. He's a deep knowledge of Greenland, having worked there for decades, and was business development director for Golders Arctic Mining and Environmental Team from 2014 to 2020. His knowledge and relationships in Greenland are incredible. He knows everyone, he knows their skills, their capabilities, and importantly, their prices. And this helps us to hire the right people for the jobs that we need to undertake at the right price. He's a fantastic resource for us. Mark Rakovides is the president of Euromines and formerly executive director of European Goldfields, the company that was taken over for $2.5 billion in 2011, as well as VP at Dundee Resources. He spent 11 years at EBRD and brings a wealth of development experience with him and to the team. His relationships in Europe are frankly incredible and are helping to open doors and avenues to finance and to off-takers. And then finally, and I think I skipped over Mark Austin. Mark Austin is a non-exec director. He brings 40 years of geological management and hands-on operational experience. He's worked in Central Rand Gold, Goldplatz, Mano River and Placidome. He's intimately involved in the planning of our drilling campaigns and for the geological elements of the project, as well as managing the exploration team. And again, he brings that huge depth of experience in drilling and exploration and the management of those. So we've got a fantastic team. And finally, I guess, tell you a little bit more about myself. I've been working in mining for more than 35 years. I've spent a great deal of that time in mines, both on surface and underground. I worked my way up through the ranks from being a miner on the face to a general manager. I've developed new mines in the former Soviet Union. I've restarted old mines out of liquidation in Southern Africa. And I've been the CEO of development mining companies. My focus is to create value by taking the projects that we have into production, thereby capturing the production premium attributed to development projects. So having established, I hope, that the GreenRoc directors are a first-rate team capable of taking these projects into production, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the Greenland mining jurisdiction. So why Greenland? Well, Greenland is an island, and it's an island that is a quarter the size of Australia, but with only 57,000 inhabitants. It's immense, and to a large extent empty of people, and it's had very few mining projects over the last 2,000 years. What would have been mined out decades ago because of its high grade and exposure to surface and ease of mining, in many and most other jurisdictions are only now being looked at in Greenland. And that's why I think Greenland is such an exciting area to be looking at. And we are a totally Greenland focused company. We don't look at anything else. So it's an exciting jurisdiction, and there are projects that are found in Greenland with extremely high grades by world standards, which are also close to surface or outcrop on surface, and then therefore incredibly easy to mine. And so it's a great geological and geological territory to be working in, and a great place to be looking for minerals. The other good thing about Greenland is legal framework has recently been updated, and it's transparent. It encourages exploration and mining. I note that the Greenland government is opposed, and this Greenland government is opposed to the mining of radioactive minerals and specifically uranium. But for all other mining projects, they've shown themselves to be extremely supportive. For the example, the government gave all exploration companies a holiday from spending commitments during the COVID pandemic. It's now issuing licenses without the need for a bankable feasibility study, mining licenses, thereby enabling the funding of such studies in the junior mining sector. And in order to obtain a mining license, the requirements now are merely to have a CRISCO compliant resource. In our case, that's a JORC resource, or an acceptable EIA and an acceptable EIA and SIA study with mitigating plans to protect the environment as far as possible. And so one of the easiest jurisdictions, in fact, to get mining licenses on the planet. If I could just move on to the next slide, talk about why Greenland's so exciting. It's a mineral-rich environment, and it's one of the good examples of the supportive authority is the recent licenses that have been granted. For example, Blue Jay's Dundas project, which is contiguous with our Tula Black Sand project, has recently received its mining license. And there are also large, unexploited but huge projects in Greenland, including the American Disco project, the Citronen Lead Zinc project, which are of global size and global significance, and are currently moving up the development curve. So it's a great jurisdiction to be working in. But so let's talk about our projects and why I believe they're top tier. Amitsoq is a previously mined area on the southern tip of Greenland. If we look at this particular slide and look on the left-hand side of this slide, you can see, on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see that the project's located on the fjords on the southern tip of Greenland. And by Greenland standards, the weather is positively balmy. The seaboard is open, which enables logistical support year-round, and it's found in the same latitude as northern Scotland, although Scotland benefits from the Gulf Stream effect, and so is a tiny bit warmer. The Amitsoq mine ore body is located on the island of Amitsoq, where the structure outcrops over a distance of more than a kilometre. This ore body was mined in the 1920s to produce approximately 50,000 tonnes of graphite ore. Albus geologists also discovered the Kallak deposit only recently, in 2017, on a peninsula of the mainland, and this looks to be larger than Amitsoq and at similar high grades as evidenced by the channel sampling. I've personally spent some time at these project areas and been underground in the old workings, and the takeaways from my visit are: one, the incredible high rock mass quality underground. The ground conditions are excellent for mining, really good hanging wall conditions with no spalling or falls of ground at all. And two, the consistency of the ore material, of the mineralized material, and its high grade nature. Which brings us to the right-hand side of the slide. The left-hand side of the graph. This graphic is a graphic which draws attention for its use, because it's useful to look at a comparison of peers in the graphite sector. And what we see here on this chart is a ranking of graphite projects by grade of material. You'll note that the Talgus Vitanga project ranks highest at 25% contained graphite. Amitsoq attained 22.6% contained graphite from the summer drilling campaign in 2021. And these grades are some 5 times higher than the grades of the bottom quartile of projects, and more than double the grades of half the projects currently being developed. In essence, the Amitsoq project has one of the highest grades of graphite in the world, and it outcrops on surface. Given the phenomenal grades from the channel sampling and the consistent and very high grades from the drilling campaign, what you can see on this slide outlines the global graphite projects linked by average grades to the graphite project promises to be one, if not the highest grade graphite project in the world. And that's been evidenced by our channel sampling and our drilling to date. So when we just moving on to the next slide, talking about graphite. It's really interesting to note that Elon Musk said our lithium-ion batteries should be called nickel graphite batteries because primarily the cathode is nickel and the anode is graphite with silicon oxide. So by weight, there's 10 times more graphite in a lithium-ion battery than there is lithium. I like to think that this gives us a sense of how great the demand for graphite is and will be, since it's predicted there'll be 125 million electric vehicles in the world by 2030, and it implies an increase of 25 times, a 2,500% increase in demand for graphite, driven by this move to EVs by the world. Furthermore, there's a commitment made by more than 100 nations to be carbon neutral by 2050, which requires a rapid transition to battery storage technologies and away from carbon-based fuels. I'd also note that this huge surge in demand may be further exacerbated by increases in use for graphite in graphene, and one in the news recently was the development of new solar panel technology using graphene as the core mineral. So from that perspective, it's good to be in the graphite space. Let's have a quick look at the uses for graphite, because I started with that. There's significant demand, and the demand in these applications is growing. Traditionally, graphite was used for refractories, batteries, steel, expanded graphite, brake linings, foundry facings, and lubricants. And graphene, which is a naturally occurring graphite, has unique properties and one of the strongest substances known to man. Before 1900, the use started with a graphite crucible, which was used to carry molten metal, and it's now also used in refractories for carbon magnesite bricks, which were important in the late 20th century, and alumina graphite forms used a little bit later in more recent technology. In the last 30 years, the use in graphite in batteries has increased dramatically. The anode in all major battery technologies is constructed now using natural and synthetic graphite. So it's growing. It's in the EV car sector, I think, that the forecasts really showing, and we talked about that earlier, this massive growth for graphite. But it's not only EV cars, it's other sectors as well. So moving on to the next slide. We've undertaken a considerable amount of metallurgical testing for the graphite that we've sampled to date, and we've been using a company called Pro Graphite. It's a German company, and they specialize in graphite, and they've proven from our sampling to date, their work to date has become extremely encouraging. The initial grades at Amitsup from the drilling program are average 22.6%, and at Kalak from the sampling program and the channel sampling program and the grab sampling program, the grades are averaging 25.6%. We've been able to take those samples and upgrade the material to 97% contained graphite using flotation, and then further purify the material using an alkaline leach to 99.97%. High purity spherical graphite, which frankly is higher than the grade that is required for a lithium-ion battery. It needs to be noted that there are many different types of graphite, and they attract different pricing. The highest demand graphite is a high purity spherical graphite, and that's the graphite that's used in battery technology. At Ametsoc, 85% of our material will be high purity spherical graphite, and it would attract, we think it would attract between $1,800 and $3,000 per metric ton. It's notable that about 15% of the additional material is plus 150 micron flake, and that would probably attract at the top end of that pricing range about $3,000 a ton. We're therefore, I think, in the enviable position, being in an enviable position, metallurgically speaking, of having material that is high grade and high price and high value in the graphite sphere. So let's have a quick look at the the drilling program that we did last year. We undertook a drilling program on the Ametsoc Island. You can see the drill pads there. We have a detailed knowledge of the outcrop on surface because obviously it's on surface. We understand the project very well in 2 dimensions, and we've undertaken this detailed metallurgical test work. The photograph here shows the island of Ametsoc and the drilling pads that we undertook for last year's drilling program. This drilling program has enabled us to get a sense of the 3rd dimension, and I hope with time that from this program we'll be able to establish an initial JORC resource. And that's what we anticipate and hope for. The competent person is currently reviewing all of the data as we speak. At Ametsoc Island, we had an exploration target of between 1.7 and 4.5 million tons, and the grades from that drilling program, as I say, this year gave us 22.6% contained graphite in the lower graphite layer. What was particularly pleasing about this drilling program was that the tightness of the sample grades, which all fell between 1% either side of that 22.6% average. So very, very tightly spaced, giving us a strong indication of the consistency of the material. The other thing that was notable from this year's drilling program was that both the upper and the lower graphite layer increased down depth, and in essence, and at present the ore body gets thicker the deeper we go, and is of course open beyond where we've drilled so far. And so we've extended our knowledge of this tabular ore body by about 150 meters down depth, and it's as I say, extremely encouraging. The other part of this particular project is the Calac exploration project, and here we've been doing a considerable amount of work this year. The exploration targets between 4 and 7 million tons, and grading between 23 and 39% contained graphite. This is one of my favorite slides because it really does illustrate a huge footprint. You can see it in the boot of the diagram the geologists have drawn on the map. In the campaign this year, this past year in 2021, we undertook an extensive beep map radiometric survey, which enabled us to plot the outcrop below the vegetation and below the light scree, and plot those outcrops along strike. And a significant channel sampling campaign gave us great confidence about the size and the extent of this mineralized area. In essence, we extended the footprint of the ore body by about 30%, and in the coming year, we'd hope, like we did on Ametsoc Island, to do some drilling and to get a sense about the 3rd dimension as it goes underground. It's my personal view, I think, backed up by the initial JORC exploration target numbers, that this mineralized zone will be considerably larger than the Ametsoc one. So I trust I've given you a sense of the potential for Ametsoc and Calac. Here's a slide which attempts to put it into context of some of the peers and compares, two other graphite companies in the graphite space. If you look at Talga Group and Talga Resources, they have a 9.68 million tons in a Crisco compliant resource. Grades at Vatanga are about 25% contained graphite. The market cap for Talga is north of $300 million. Next source materials, has a similar size in terms of tons, about 8.6 million tons contained graphite, but the grades are down at 6.13% on its Molo project in Madagascar, and the market cap here just slightly north of $200 million US. Tirupati Graphite has 1.15 million tons contained graphite, grades between 4.1 and 4.7%, and has recently constructed a processing plant and is developing that project into production. And again, the market cap is north of $100 million. So when you look at that and you look at GreenRoc and our current anticipated resource, just looking at the exploration targets and feeling more confident because of the exploration program we undertook this year, our anticipated resource is about 2.6 million tons and would grade somewhere between 22 and 39% contained graphite. So our market cap at the moment is about $10 million, and when I compare us with those companies and see the fact that we are in the process of moving towards further exploration this year and then development in the forthcoming 2 or 3 years, we look to be I think we look to be considerably undervalued in comparison with our peers, and we certainly have the ambition to become like them and to move, as I say, into production. So that I think gives you a quick sense of what we're looking at in Greenland. And when I really sort of think about the whole Greenland, the Greenland project and its the Greenland Graphite project, the Ametsuk project, it's a company maker in itself. It really does have the potential to be very, very significant in the graphite world, a world that is becoming increasingly into focus as people realize that graphite is the in-demand mineral for a lithium-ion battery. But let's talk a little bit about Tula Black Sands, because that also has has similar potential for being a company maker. I'm just looking here at the slide here. This is a picture of the Tula Black Sands, and what you can actually see is that it's on surface. It's a sand deposit that is a raised beach in the north of Greenland, and what we're seeing here is a high-grade Ilmanite black sand along the shoreline. It's been extensively drilled by us over a 10-kilometer length and mineralized strike length, and the initial result. Not from this year, from 2018.
Kurt, I think we just lost you briefly there as your phone call came in.
And that's one of the highest grades in the world. Sorry, can you hear me? So that's one of the highest grade. Yeah, sorry, I just had a slight interruption there. 19 million tons at as I say, 8.9% ilmenite. But what we're currently doing at the moment is drilling, and we've drilled this project this year, and we did another 249 holes to the basement of the deposit in the southern area, and we've defined, as I say, the basement of that, and we're anticipating getting the results back from that in the next couple of months. Of course, we don't know what they're going to say, but one would anticipate that we would anticipate an increase in both confidence in the resource, moving from inferred to indicated as far as possible, and also the size of the resource as well, because of course we've gone deeper in this particular drilling program. Let's talk a little bit about ilmenite. Ilmenite is effectively titanium iron trioxide. It's a black material, but it gets converted, I guess ironically, to titanium dioxide, which is an opaque white material, and it's that white material that is used in paints and plastics and just about anything that you want to make white on a global basis. And so there's huge demand for this industrial mineral, and it's growing. It's growing at about 4.3% a year because, of course, the growth in population, the growth in demand for white goods, and the growth in demand for paints and plastics and so on. So it's a good mineral to be in, and as I say, quite an exciting area. What we've actually done, we've just done, as I say, a drilling campaign this year. It was focused on the high-grade southern zone. I'm anticipating those results, as I say, in the next 2 months or so, and it's really sort of backing up our exploration target. We're anticipating quite a significant resource, very, very similar to the next door project in Blue Jay's Dundas project. So let's have a quick look at that and compare that a little bit. Dundas currently has 117 million tons at 6.1% contained ilmenite. We currently have 20 at 8.9%, 20 million tons. I'm anticipating quite a significant increase in that. The Dundas project, the Blue Jay project, has got a mining license recently and is looking to finance their project to move into production. We're following very much in their footsteps and trying to learn from everything that they've done. We have a program at the moment that for the coming year, where we'll be doing a little bit more additional drilling, but more importantly, finishing off the environmental impact assessment work that we need to do, and also the social impact assessment, and that will give us the ability to apply for a mining license at the end of this year, and that is certainly our intent. If we look at ilmenite supply demand, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but what we're actually seeing is that over the last 2 years, the price of ilmenite, the demand for ilmenite continues to grow, and the price of ilmenite has gone from about $180 a ton to $380 a metric ton. And so from that perspective, we've got this growth because there is a supply constraint on ilmenite, and the production of ilmenite, and also the demand continues to grow. So again, a great high demand strategic mineral to be involved in. I'm going to go back to that and still talk a little bit more about TBS. The Tula Black Sands project, I think, if you compare it with the Blue Jay project, we are, yes, smaller, I think. The grades that I've seen so far in the area that we're drilling, I think, is going to be higher than their material. And in terms of we've done some initial work on the processing, the metallurgical processing, so to look at that process route, and it's very, very simple. It's a matter of using spiral classifiers to take out the heavy material, and then a wet mag separation, and we're getting saleable material from undertaking those tests on that material. And we're using a company in Australia called IHC, a specialist in that particular field. So I want to talk a little bit, I think, about Melville Bay, the iron project. I think there is potential there for, we have these resources here. There's a potential here for direct shipping ore. We don't know an awful lot about it, and we'll be doing, a detailed study on that in the coming year to really understand what it is that we have there, with the idea, potentially the idea of looking for joint venture partners in that area while we focus on our two key projects, the Tula Black Sands and the Ametsoq Graphite project. So it's a nice project to have. We have 63 million tons at 31% contained iron, and plenty of potential to increase the size of that. So a good project. So finally, I just want to talk about where we're at. Just a little bit about iron ore. 98% of the mined iron is used to make steel. There has been a constraint on the steel on a global basis. China is slowing down a little bit, but the price of iron ore is not at an all-time high, but it's certainly very high by previous standards. And I think the opportunity in Melville Bay is to find direct shipping ore with the idea of taking it direct to port. And having a very reduced processing plant, and that, as I say, I think we'll be looking at to try to mimic what we've seen and what we see at Mary River across the bay on the Baffin Island. It's the same geological area. So there we go. You can see Mary River just across the bay there, as I say, we think we've got a very similar geological structure, and so therefore a similar opportunity. So I think there's, as I say, significant opportunity, potential to increase the resource there. We would only focus, I think, on DSO potential because for a small company that's what we could deal with. Okay, an Inglefield element project. This is a very high potential cobalt, gold, vanadium, and nickel project. We'll be taking a good look at this from a geological perspective in the next year or so, putting a little bit of focus on what we think is the potential. And we're again potentially looking for joint venture partners to come in and work this with us, and that's something that we're considering. So what does it look like? What does the future look like? At the moment, we're awaiting an Ametsoq resource estimate from the independent competent person. We've got a drilling program set up for next year that will define the Ametsoq Island. It's an extensive drilling program. We've designed it. We're in the process of negotiating the contracts with the drilling contractors and service providers. We would look at an initial program on Calac just to see what it looks like in the third dimension. We are intent at the moment. We're negotiating to do an environmental baseline study. The second year, which is one of the key requirements for a mining license, we would anticipate from the drilling program in 2022 a revised resource estimate from the one that we're anticipating right now. I think there's an opportunity to drive Ametsoq using scoping, EIA and SIA studies very quickly into a mining license, with the idea that we would be doing the metallurgical test work and process design work next year, with the idea that within 24 months or less, we'll have the mining application license in, and we'll be looking to take this project into production. So Amitsoq, I think, looking good. TBS, I think, is probably further ahead. We've got a good resource at the moment. We're anticipating the revised ore reserve in Q1 this year. We've commissioned, or in the process of commissioning, environmental impact and social impact assessments. There'll be a minor infill drilling just to give us more confidence this year on there, and the process design and metallurgical test work will be finalized with the idea that we'll have both EIA, SIA, and the plant process design all in place to enable the full planning and the full feasibility work to be undertaken. And we'd be in a position to do that by the end of this year. We'd anticipate, I think, mining application very early next year with feasibility studies looking at offtake agreements and financing within 18 to 24 months. I'm very confident from the grades of this material and the fact that we're looking at next door's project that we will be able to take this into production fairly quickly. So just moving rapidly on. Just a summary slide, I think, if I remember it right. I think this is a great market opportunity. Graphite and titanium, ilmenite, which is titanium ore, are both critical minerals in Europe and North America. That means they're concerned about supply constraint from Asia and from China. We're seeing a requirement of companies who want to really tie down their supply chain, and Asia and China playing a little bit harder ball and making the materials less available. And so having these particular critical minerals in our portfolio is an extremely valuable thing to have, and I think we're well placed to supply both North America and Europe with them. There is this massive demand growth that we talked about in graphite, just almost exponential, and to the extent that we need every graphite project that's being developed in the world to actually come online to be able to meet the demand, and of course that's a big ask. We're seeing also demand growth for ilmenite, and that again is due to a supply constraint, and would anticipate that to continue. So we're in minerals that are growing in demand. Greenland, I can't say enough good about it. It's a fantastic country to be working with. It's a good jurisdiction. It's very transparent. It's very stable, and the support that we've had from the Greenlandic government and the discussions we've had have been nothing but positive, so a good place to be doing work. Our projects themselves, I talked about Amitsoq, probably second highest, but certainly up there in terms of grades in the world, and certainly the right quality of graphite. And similarly, the ilmenite project. Well, next door, Blue Jay say that they have the highest grade ilmenite in the world, and since ours is slightly higher, I find that an interesting statement. But we're certainly up there in one of the highest grade ilmenite projects in the world, and again, very, very clean metallurgically. We've got a seasoned management team, all of us, not too old, but old enough to know what happens and how things work in the mining industry, and depth of experience on making these projects work. As I say, we're growing at the moment. Our company is undertaking significant work to drive these projects forward, and I'm anticipating a very exciting 2022. So that, I'm fairly certain, is the completion of that. Can I hand it back to you?
Yeah, absolutely, Kirk. Thank you very much indeed for the present. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, do please continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. But while Kirk just takes a few moments to review those investor questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you that the recording of the presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Kirk, I know we're sort of coming up, we've got a little bit of time left. We did have one pre-submitted question. If I may just read that one out, and then we'll move on to the live Q&A. The question reads as follows. was, did Alba Mineral Resources hold the entire license for Amitsoq? If so, was North Amitsoq not renewed? And the second part is, who has applied for the exploration license that contains Amitsoq and Nanortalik? If not GreenRoc Mining, did Alba and GreenRoc miss this, and why? I know AEX Gold and Blue Jay are getting more licenses near the gold belt. Will GreenRoc also explore gold anomalies? Sort of 3 in 1 for you there, Kirk.
Oh my goodness, yes. Well, the first answer is that yes, the license was 100% owned by Alba. The second answer is the north of the very northern tip of the island. I understand is held by by another exploration company, but there is no graphite in that area that we've seen, and so we're not particularly concerned about that. And as I say, very northern tip of the Amitsoq Island. In terms of other areas of graphite, it's it's difficult for me to comment on that, except to say that a mining company such as ours would be sensibly looking to make applications as such, and there's been no announcement of that, and so I'm not able to talk about it. But any sensible mining company would certainly be looking to tie up the ground around it where there's potential for graphite, and I think because there's been no announcement, I can't talk about anything like that. But I would hope that you might be able to join the dots. So we're very, very focused on the graphite. I'm, in terms of other projects, we're currently not applying for other licenses in Greenland. We're very focused on taking the projects that we do have into production, and as expeditiously as possible. And I think the reason for that is that that's where the real value for the investor lies. And if you can just think about the idea of what the size of this project would be, and it'd be a relatively small mining project, but maybe processing 200,000 tons of ore a year and producing, say, 40,000 tons of high grade, high purity, high value spherical graphite. Then you can start to look at the annual revenues that you would get from such a project in just the graphite. And as I say, I think that's really our starting thought process on that. So does that answer the question, Paul, or have I missed something?
I'm sure we'll get a comment from the live Q&A if there's something else that we didn't.
Well,
just to recap that, it was just about the application for the exploration license that contains Amitsoq and metallic, and also AEX Gold and Blue Jay and those licenses, which I think you have covered off there.
Yeah. Okay. So just moving through the questions, we've got Andy M. How would you look to develop the asset, and what funding requirements are you looking for, and will you look for partners? Well, I mean, I'll start with how would I look to develop the asset. Looking specifically at there are two assets, of course, but looking specifically at the graphite project, we would intend to look to do a plant design for that, probably in the second half of next year, with the idea of putting, as I said earlier, an initial throughput of about 200,000 tons of ore. One would anticipate the recoveries from that would be roughly 80 to 90%, and that's from our test work. And the grade of that material will be 97% contained graphite, and that material then could be further upgraded to a 99.97% contained graphite using leaching. We'd intend to do that, and we'd look to design the plant. If I was to wave a wet finger in the air, and having built plants like this and rebuilt plants like this in the past, 200,000 ton throughput in that environment, probably looking at $50 to $60 million, including all of the mining costs, the initial mining costs, and getting the mining equipment in order to get underneath and underground on those ore bodies. So yeah, we've certainly thought about that. I think the material that we'd be producing would be about 40,000 tons of saleable material, roughly, initial phase, and one would anticipate that that material would be in the sort of $1,500 to $2,000 a ton mark, and so we're talking about 100, sort of 100 million. Sorry, we're talking about $100 million annual revenues from that initial plant. That's that order of magnitude. How are we going to fund it? Well, we're going to talk to off-takers. Elon Musk is making an awful lot of noise about acquiring graphite assets in North America and doing graphite deals. It's good to see that. There are any number of gigafactories that are in development in Europe and in North America, and therefore, we would anticipate that we'd look to offtake agreements with those and potential debt funding, and also, of course, we'll be looking for some equity. But we are very much thinking to build this mine ourselves. If a partner were to come along, we'd be happy to talk to them. Foolish not to, but our initial plan A and our ambition is to build a mine here. Okay, Nigel B, when do you think the flagship projects will go into production, and how do you think it will take from production to pay back the return on investment? Well, I think that because of such high grade, I didn't talk about the Ilmanite project, did I yet? But because of such the high grade nature of the graphite and the high value of the product, having just talked about very broad brush arm waving numbers, I would anticipate that within 18 months to 2 years, we would certainly be looking for funding to develop the project. The development itself would take about a year. I would anticipate that the payback would be a very, very short period of time at Amatsock, because it's such high grade material. So I'd anticipate the payback 1 to 2 years, really as quickly as that. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Black Sands project as well. I think that's frankly further advanced. We know an awful lot more about it. We will have, I'm fairly certain, the resource, the JORC resource, that will allow us to do feasibility work by the end of this year. I would like to be thinking that we will be doing that feasibility work very quickly. It's a very simple project. It's digging material from the beaches, processing it through a very simple process plant, and putting the tailings material back on the beach behind you. So environmentally very friendly, and from a processing point, very simple. The challenge, of course, is getting it onto bulk carriers, and there's about 4 months of the year when the water is open and when we could load bulk carriers, and we would intend on, again, funding and putting that project into production. I'm saying 18 months to 2 years hence. Michael D, what's the shortest route to monetization for Amatsock, and what are the outline values that you see at production? I think I've sort of covered most of that, but the shortest route to monetization would be to sell it to somebody who wants to pay the real value. But failing that, and we're certainly not looking for we're not looking for people to take it over. We're looking to develop it ourselves. Failing that, we would we're intent on putting it into production, and as I say, I anticipate that the share price, considering our peers, will go up considerably as we move towards that production premium. But also, as I said, I think the payback will be a year to 2 years maximum, so it'll be a very significant cash flow operation. Okay, until GreenRoc's market cap is significantly higher, the dilution that shareholders face if GreenRoc raises funds to progress its projects will be considerable. What's GreenRoc's strategy to ensure that the market more fairly values its assets to ensure dilution for shareholders is minimized? Well, Thanks for the question, Jeffrey. And it's a problem that vexes me. And when I look at, we've been giving good news out in the last 3 months since we've been a standalone company. I'm anticipating that there's going to be a considerable news flow with respect to a resource statement on Amitsoq. I'm considering there's going to be some really considerable enhancement up in the north on the Tula Black Sands, because we're awaiting the results from this large drilling program that we undertook this summer. It was a very successful drilling program. We're waiting the results on that, and we would hope that the market would see the value of that as we increase the resources and as we get a resource statement for Amitsoq, a resource statement for Tula Black Sands. We already have a resource statement, as you know, for Melville Bay. So we're suddenly looking at a company that has more, a lot more in terms of JORC resource. I hope it's very much a forward-looking statement. But also, we will be putting out information about our planning, what we're looking to do this coming year, how aggressively we're going to move these projects forward towards the stage where we can do the feasibility work and take them into production. So we will be doing everything that we can to enlighten the market about what it is that we're doing, and we certainly at the moment don't intend to be looking for capital at this share price and at this time. We have money to fund us through the end of this year. Sorry, Brian, does that answer the question? So yeah, I'd like to hope that the share price will more fairly reflect the value of the assets by the time that we get to be looking to raise more funds in the future. Sorry, I just missed the Brian project thing, but do we have enough to cover the project? So we've got enough to take us to the end of this year. I believe that company such as ours really does the best for their shareholders if we put as much money as we can into exploration, into the ground, into creating value, and that's certainly what I'm focused on. Do I know what's behind the share overhang and why the price fell 40% from the IPO? And what are we doing to resolve this issue? Well, we are looking at that very, very hard. We're looking to get more information into the market. We're looking to do more public relations, more investor relations work. This is an example here, this particular presentation. We don't know why it is that the share price fell so significantly when you think that nearly 75% of our shares are tightly held and locked up. If you look at it, it's actually a very small number of shareholders and very small trades that have actually been driving our share price down. I don't think it's a true reflection at all of the value of the company, and I'd like to think that as investors get to know us better, as we get to know more and more investors, and we get the message out that the share price will start to reflect that and start to reflect the real value of GreenRoc, which I think is considerably higher. Tim J, great work, sounds promising. Oh, I like you. Are you looking to access investors in the United States like Blue Jay? Good question. I know there are always complications with the United States, so I would have to answer that later if you don't mind. And having spoken with the nominated advisor and ETX, our broker. Andrew S, do GreenRoc currently have enough finances to see them through the planned activities of 3 to 4 months? I would say, Andrew, that we've got enough to see us through 12 months. That's what we promised in the admission document, and we're going to deliver on that promise. In the next 24 months, I'd be looking to do full feasibility studies with professional engineering companies into next year, and we didn't fund for those, so we probably will be looking for financial financial support in next year, just for the next year's work, for want of a better way of putting it. Are Nigel B, are Alba shareholders still the major shareholders for GreenRoc? Why did they not receive shares in GreenRoc when the company floated? Well, the shares are held by Alba, not by the individual shareholders, so they weren't distributed to the shareholders. Alba is about a 55% shareholder, so they are the major shareholder. They have no intention at all of selling down. They want to see this management team drive these projects forward and see the value from, as I say, the production premium. But Alba itself, the company, holds the shares. Brian W, I don't actually forecast the 2023 revenue, to be honest. Having built and developed mines over 20 or 30 years now, the process itself is probably a 12-month process. Once you start that whole construction phase, there is of course a requirement to raise financing for it, and so we would anticipate the idea of moving into development and the building of mines at the tail end of 2023, assuming everything goes to plan. How an investor from Germany and Switzerland can be involved. Oh, hi, Pierre. Obviously through the AIM market, and it's possible for European citizens to buy shares on AIM, but we're not on the German stock exchange at the moment, and at the moment you'd have to come through London. Nigel B, if GreenRoc raises funds from institutional investors to fund the mine development, will they give current shareholders the same opportunity to participate in the fundraise? It's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to that, Nigel. I really just don't know the answer. We haven't even thought about raising funds at the present time, except to know that we're going to need to do it sometime in the future, and certainly before we run out.
Kirk, I think you've gone through every single question and picked them all off, so thank you indeed for addressing all of those questions. And of course, if any further questions are submitted, you will have the ability to review those, and we'll publish responses where appropriate to do so to any additional questions on the Investor Meet Company platform. Kirk, before we redirect investors to provide you with some feedback, which I know you will appreciate, could I just please ask you for a few closing comments?
Yeah, well, I think I'd like to make a statement. I think, graphite is the new lithium. Gigafactories are being planned all over Europe and in the UK. The demand is set to increase from the current levels for graphite by a factor of 25. And, lithium's certainly has, it continues to has, and it's having its day in the sun. Graphite hasn't done that yet, but I really do think, and I start to see it, that there are more and more articles on graphite. I really do believe that we're starting to see people understand that graphite is going to be more in demand than lithium in the future, and therefore it's a great commodity to be in. The second thing I would say is that our graphite really, why would you want to invest in GreenRoc? And I think the key reason, or one of the key reasons, is that our graphite's EV quality, it's electric vehicle quality. It's one of the highest grades in the world, and the drilling campaign has confirmed that it extends to depth. We don't know. This coming year's drilling campaign will extend that ore body. We just don't know how deep it goes, but it's getting greater width with depth. So it's a highly positive place to be. And I think my sort of third thing is we are trading at a very significant discount to our peers, and yet our projects, in my view, look superior and easier to sort of take into production, both ilmenite and graphite. And so from that perspective, I think we have a great series of projects. We have a fantastic opportunity. We are really high grade. We are fast tracking high grade critical minerals in a jurisdiction that is very, easy to work in. Not even the slightest sniff of corruption. It's a great place to be. We're moving those projects in through development and into production, and I really do appreciate the shareholders' support, and hope to have more support in the future, and anticipate that our share price will reflect that support.
That's fantastic, Kirk. Thank you indeed for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close the session, as you'll be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete and is greatly valued by the company. On behalf of Kirk and the management team of GreenRoc Mining PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's session. Good afternoon to you all.